Hello everybody, welcome back to the channel Off The Underside. We've got another, I don't even know what to say, just an amazing guest. He is literally a Scottish, not just a Scottish football legend, he is a Scottish sports legend, you know. He's does football, he does horse racing, and I grew up watching him, get nothing but total admiration for the man. Presented a Scott Sport and Clyde One Super Scoreboard, amongst loads of other stuff. It's Mr. Jim Delahunt. How are you, pal?
I'm very well, Jamie. Very nice to be on, and thank you very much for the invite. And we'll try and live up to that wonderful introduction.
Well, like I say, mate, it's all true. You know, like I say, watched Scott Sport growing up religiously. I've always been a massive football fan and that, and just loved watching you. You know, brilliant presenter, mate, and you're also a journalist as well. I forgot to mention that one. So, like, you do a lot of stuff, Jim.
Yeah. Delighted to say that I'm still very busy. I'm a columnist on the Scottish Sun. Have been this is my 16th football season with the Scottish Sun, and I also do the horse racing columns for the Sun as well. So obviously 16 years doing that too. We do it all year round, flat and jumps, and delighted to say that a couple of times we've managed to win the Racing Post Naps table, which is basically the championship for tipsters in the whole of Britain and Ireland, and I won that first in 2018, and I'm the reigning flat champion. I won it last year, 2024, so I'm sitting about mid-table at the moment. I was joking the other day that I might be pushing for a European place. I don't think I'm going to win it this time, but we might get a little bit further up if one or two of the ones that keep finishing second actually go in and win the race. So it's been one of those years, a lot of seconds at big prices, and these are the ones that were winning last year that are finishing second this year. But that's the way it goes. You've just got to hang in.
That's it. Good times and bad times. Obviously, you've had the successes in that, but is it something? See, horse racing, is it something that you've always wanted to do? I know that you did start in that early doors and stuff, but you know, I think you mostly do that now, don't you? Is that something that you've always wanted to do?
Yeah, I still do a football column on a Saturday in the Sun. I've just finished that actually when I'm talking to you. Just finished that about half an hour ago. But horse racing, I mean, everybody knew me on TV for doing football, a bit of rugby, a bit of golf, a bit of boxing, but it was mainly football. But I always had this horse racing thing on the side. Ever since I was 20, 21, I've had some form of racing column on the go. I started off on the old Sunday Standard, which was the forerunner of the Sunday Herald way back in the day. I did a year and a half, 2 years on that. While I was started that when I was still at college, in actual fact. And then I moved on to a magazine called The Scottish Farmer, and running parallel with my TV career, I actually wrote a column in that magazine for 20 years. And while I was on that, I started a column in the Sunday Herald, which I did for 12 years, but again, running parallel with all the football. So it wasn't as if there were different segments. And then very luckily for me, the Sun came to me and said, would you like to leave the Herald and come and work for us? And I was delighted to do that. And I've been there ever since. As I said at the top there, that's 16 years I've been with the Scottish Sun writing about horse racing and football. So it's for me, it's a nice place to be. And long may it continue.
Brilliant. Where did that love for horse racing come from? Is that something that's been in your family when you were a kid and stuff?
Well, I'll tell you a true story. I am from Saltcoats, West Coast. We did not have horses, I can assure you. But there was one time when my father had twin sisters, and my twins were, at the time, I was 16. I was the oldest of 5. And the twins they would be 9. And my father said, you're the oldest, you take the 2 of those horse riding lessons. So it was just along the road in Stevenson from Saltcoats. Anybody who's listening or watching will know exactly where that is. And I took the 2 girls to horse riding lessons. And within about a fortnight, both of them had chucked it. And I was loving it. And from there, I did a little bit of show jumping, a little bit of cross country, and then years later, I did a bit of horse racing at that time as well, because I went up to Motherwell while I was a student, and I rode out for John Wilson up at Motherwell. That stable's no longer there. And then years later, when I was on TV, I was actually 31, would you believe? and I went down to record a TV feature for Linda Perrott at Ayr. And that stable's not there now either. That's now a block of flats for students. And Linda said, yeah, I heard you used to ride. I said, yeah, it was a long time ago, Linda. She says, why don't you come down? I'll stick you on a horse and see how you get on. So I came down, and we did all the filming, and that went out on TV. And then I came down separately with no cameras. And Linda said, I've got one for you to ride. It's called Francis Anne. And I said, right, that's great. So I jumped on Francis Anne, and oh my goodness, I thought, I can't wait to get off this. I do not want to do this. But I went up to the gallops and I had a canter round. And when I came back down, Linda said, so we'll see you again on Wednesday. This was a Monday morning. We'll see you again on Wednesday. And I stupidly said yes. And I went back 3 times a week for the next 9 years. So I rode out racehorses for 9 years. I picked up an amateur jockey's license. And the kind of reward for doing all the hard work in the early mornings was that you got an occasional ride. And I think I rode 13 times in total, 12 on the flat and 1 over hurdles. Didn't manage to ride a winner. I wasn't that good, but it was absolutely superb experience for somebody like me who was basically writing about the sport and gave me a superb insight into how jockeys went about their business and how to train and how to be fit and how to keep your weight down. And I mean, those years, 31 years old to 40, I was the fittest I have ever been in my life before and after. You cannot be fit enough to ride racehorses. And I loved it, absolutely loved it. But eventually the back gave in and I had to chuck it. And I still have days when I can hardly move. but that's just a legacy. And I wouldn't have swapped it for anything.
And then what about the football side of stuff? Was that something, again, did you grow up, was that a football family you were in that?
Yeah, we were football. I was, as I already said to you, I was born in Saltcoats. So if you're born and brought up in the west of Scotland in the 60s and 70s, you kick a ball around morning, noon and night. And I did that. I had a big pal next door called Jim Patrick. And him and I used to play football morning, noon and night. And there was a few others joined in as well. And then, as happens in the west of Scotland, we ended up getting sent to different schools. I went to the Catholic school. He went to the Protestant school. And we didn't really meet again until sort of under 16. We played in a match against each other. Under 18, actually, we played a match against each other. And then about 20 years after that, we ended up working on the same newspaper. So I haven't been in touch with Jim for a while, but I know he's still going strong. And yeah, you were brought up kicking a ball around. I loved kicking a ball around. I was a football fanatic. I played football sort of primary 4 onwards. We had organised leagues at school from sort of primary 4 onwards. And I played football right through that. Got into the squad for the primary school team. Went to secondary school. Thought I was only a sub for the primary school team, so I'm not going to get a game for the secondary school team. But I managed to get into that squad as well. And I was a squad player all the way through under 13 to under 19. Did a bit of amateur football till I was 21. And then realised I was utterly hopeless and should just concentrate on other things. So, but hopefully I can talk a decent game, and that's how I managed to get into the broadcasting and the journalism. And I didn't actually start out as a presenter. I started out on a local newspaper down in Kilmarnock. Did my year down there, and then I went on to local radio. And then from there, I actually got a big break getting onto a newspaper called the Daily Winner, which Bill Leckie of the Scottish Sun and Derek McGregor of the Scottish Sun were both on as well. We were all very young, and we were all trying to make our way in the game. And we brought out this newspaper, a daily sports newspaper, 16 pages every day. And I think we lasted 54 issues before it went under. And we all had to pick up our redundo and go and do something else. So the boys went back onto another paper. I think both of them went to the Daily Record, and I went to Radio Clyde for the first time, not the most recent time, but I went to Radio Clyde and was a night news editor there. And from there, I got a phone call saying, do I want to come to STV? But they didn't want me to come to STV as a presenter. They asked me to come as a news producer. And it was a $5,000 drive, so I jumped at it and went to STV. And within about 6 months, they stuck me on screen, reading the news, not doing sport. And then I got a little sports break when somebody was off. I think Rob McLean was off or something. And I met Hazel Irvine in the corridor, and she said, you know, you're on the news tonight. And I said, No. So everybody knew about it except me, just to make sure that I didn't panic. And I presented Scotland Today Sport that night and didn't look back for 16 years.
Well, since we're on that topic just now, mate, I said to you on Twitter, I don't know if you've seen it, but I've actually met you before.
Go on.
So I think, right, I'm pretty sure, right, so it was when Dick Advocat
Right.
Was becoming the manager of Rangers. And
Yep.
you were, I think I was about 11 year olds, I say. I actually lived right across the road from Ibrox, so I'm a huge Celtic fan, but me and my family are off the Ibrox, which I know is crazy, but so you were outside Ibrox, and you were doing your recording, and me and my dad were passing in the car, and we're like, my dad's like, there's Jim Delahunt. Wow, you know, I'm like, wow, starstruck and stuff, just like that I'm right now. And he's like, go and speak to him. Once he's done that, go and see if you can get a wee autograph or whatever. And I was like, no. And he's like, just go do it, it'll be fine. And so you'd finished what you were doing and that, and I came up to you and I was like, can I get your autograph? And you went, absolutely. And you had a script, and you signed the script, and you gave me the script, and that meant the absolute world to me, man. So I just want to thank you for that.
Fantastic.
I just want to thank you for that, mate. Unfortunately, over the years, moving houses and all that script has went
That'll have been lost, yeah. Like most of my stuff as well.
Aye, but honestly, like that meant the absolute world to me, man. So thank you very much for that, Jim.
Great.
Just shows you, you know, a bit of kindness and stuff will stay with people. That'll stay with me forever. Do you know what I mean?
Oh, that's a lovely story. Thank you very much.
No bother at all, mate. But yeah. So you mentioned the journal. You know, you were into horse race, you were into football and stuff. And then obviously so it was never a dream then when you were a right young kid to get into journalism.
Yeah, well, it wasn't. I don't go in for all the dream stuff, but I did a degree in business studies at what is now called Glasgow Caledonian, but back in those days it was the Tech. It was Glasgow Tech, and I did a 4-year degree, a BA in business studies, which involved 2 years in, a year out working in industry, and then a year back in to get your degree. And at the end of that degree, I wanted to become a journalist. That was always my ambition. But I didn't have enough qualifications to get into English at Glasgow Uni. That was my problem. So I'd ended up doing sort of economics and Scots law, but the Scots law was a good thing to do. And at the end of that degree, I managed to pick up some part-time work as a journalist with various papers and sports agencies and stuff like that. Like, you would be sent to a cricket match down at Ayr on a Saturday, and you would have a list of 12 papers to file 3 or 4 paragraphs to for the Sunday. And that taught you a lot. That's how I sort of got my foot in the door. But back in those days, you had to prove, to become a member of the National Union of Journalists, you had to prove that 40% of your income came from journalism. And getting up to that 40% was the hardest thing I ever did. So it was very, very difficult. And I mean, nowadays you just join the NUJ, but back then you had to go in front of a committee. I remember having to go in front of a committee down in Irvine, a pub on Irvine seafront. And you had to stand up, explain your background, explain your qualifications, explain where you were getting your income from. And then I was accepted into the NUJ and just took off from there. I managed to get a job in a local paper, as I mentioned earlier. And once you get the foot in the door in a local paper, as long as you're not completely hopeless, then there's a fair chance you're going to start climbing the ladder. So I was very, very lucky, the breaks that I had over the years. Funnily enough, that local paper job led to another job, which I did while I was at Radio Clyde the first time, while I was night news editor on Radio Clyde. I don't think they have that anymore. But back then they had a night news service, which ran all the way through from 9 o'clock at night till 7 in the morning. And while I was doing that, I would come off that shift at 7 in the morning, and through the guy who I used to work for in Kilmarnock, who was now working for the Sunday Times, he would give me a day shift at the Sunday Times in Glasgow doing sub-editing. So I would actually finish at 7, go to my sister-in-law's flat. She'd have gone to school as a teacher. I would jump into the bed, get 2 hours kip, and then make my way to the Sunday Times and do an 8-hour shift there, and then come back, have something to eat, and then go back onto Radio Clyde. So it probably wasn't good for me, but it certainly boosted up the earnings.
The stuff you can do when you're younger is incredible. Exactly, energy you've got in that.
I couldn't even think about it now.
But you know, see, whenever I speak to people, Jim, footballers or pundits and that themselves, there's always a story of, like, a bit of something bad happening. So that point where you're saying, the local paper and you get made redundant and stuff. And was there any point in that period of time where you thought, what, maybe this just isn't for me? Obviously, you went to Radio Clyde after that. But I just find it really impressive when things like that happen to people, and it's like, I'm just going to keep going with this. Was there any part of you going, what, I might just go and get a normal job or whatever, but anything like that?
No, I mean, back at that point, when I was, I'm trying to get the correct lineage here. Back at that point, when I was made redundant by the Daily Winner, I had two job offers. One was to go to the Air Advertiser as chief reporter, and the other one was to be night news editor at Radio Clyde. And the night news editor at Radio Clyde, bizarrely, was $2,500 less than the job in Air. But I decided I'm going to give this broadcasting a real good go, and I'll take the lesser job, not the lesser job, but the lesser money. I'll take the lesser money to see if I can get a break into broadcasting, and that paid off. Later on, though, there was a point where when I left STV, I went to Setanta Sports, and I signed a 4-year contract for fantastic money. It was absolutely terrific at the time. No complaints whatsoever. But 3 years into that contract, they went bust, and I was left high and dry. And it took me. I still had a job in the Sunday Herald as a columnist, but it took me a full year to get back into broadcasting after Setanta went bust. And the odd thing was, when I was phoning up people for work, they kept saying to me, "Oh, we can't afford your wages. We can't afford to pay the money you're looking for." And I wasn't looking for a lot of money. I was just looking to get my foot back in the door. But it's just this perception that people have, "Oh, he's been on telly for 15 years. He won't do this job, like a match report from Hearts against Kilmarnock or whatever, So I was kind of left high and dry for a year. But just before I went to Radio Clyde the second time, to do Super Scoreboard, which you've already touched on, I was offered a job with Scottish Racing, which would have been working around all the 5 tracks in Scotland. And I actually turned that down to go to Radio Clyde to keep the football going for a little bit longer. But I'm now, as well as my job in the Sun, I now work for Air Racecourse. I'm the PR down there, and I do all the race day presenting down there. So I've got a very nice balance between being involved in racing management now and also still a journalist as a columnist on the number one paper in Scotland.
That is incredible, that story about, not being able to get a job after Setanta, because as you say, you would expect all your experience, your talents and that you'd have been snapped up straight away. But clearly a victim of your own success, Jim, like all the, people thinking that you're going to be wanting too much money and you're going to be doing these sort of things. But that's really good, man. But I'm glad it worked out anyway and you came back.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I mean, I felt sorry for myself at the time, but once I got my foot back in, I actually did a lot. I did some snooker, I did some boxing, just to keep my face on YouTube and stuff like that. And it's just to keep going until something full time came up. But these things are sent to try us, and we always try and come out the other end anyway.
Tell me a bit about that transition from journalism into broadcasting and obviously being on TV. Was there, how nervous were you, to actually kind of appear on camera to start with in Scotland Today and that? Were you nervous about that, or was that something you just decided, I'm just going to knuckle down and go for this?
I think everybody would be lying if they said they weren't nervous the first time. But I think once I'd done a few broadcasts, I was quite comfortable, and I was more concentrating on getting better as opposed to overcoming nerves. And by the time you've done that for 3 or 4 years, I wouldn't call it nerves at all. I think it's just adrenaline. I think once that red light comes on, it's the adrenaline that kicks in. Whether you're live in a studio, you're live at a ground, you're live in a studio at a ground, wherever you are under pressure and the red light comes on, and you just know that you're being paid to perform and you have to perform. And hopefully over the years, I managed to do that quite successfully. And I still, down at Air Racecourse, I present all the race days, have done for the past 3 years. I start off by introducing all the jockeys and horses, and then as the race day goes on, I interview jockeys and trainers. And there's not a word scripted for 5-6 hours. and that probably takes me back to the days doing the super scoreboard on a Saturday, because some days you would kick off at 12 and finish at 6, and you might start with an idea of what you're going to say, but it was unscripted for 6 hours and you just had to get on with it. So standing in front of the crowd down at Ayr, and sometimes we get 16,000 down there, standing in front of a crowd down there live, I enjoy rather than not look forward to. I really can assure you of that.
Brilliant. I mean, what about like back then? You've done a lot of interviews and spoke to a lot of people and that. Is there anybody in particular that really stood out to you back then when you were interviewing people, or like even just like colleagues or whatever? Anybody, as I say, when you were transitioning into TV and radio and that?
No, I mean, I always got on really well with. I mean, the first 2 presenters I worked with on Scotland Today were Shireen Nanjiani and Viv Lumsden, and I used to have a great relationship with Shireen and Viv. And then others would filter in over the years, like Angus Simpson and John Mackay, who's still there. In fact, John and I don't think you'll mind me telling this story because it's in his book. John and I were both working in Seville when Celtic were playing in the UEFA Cup final in 2003. And I was there kind of at a leg in both camps. I was Scott Sport and Scotland Today. And John was very much Scotland Today. And Jane Lewis was there as well, Scotland Today. She's now BBC. And between, we had sort of breakfast shows to do, we had lunchtime shows to do, tea time shows to do. So between the 3 of us and a couple of others, we managed to get all the shifts covered basically. And then on the night of the game, it was John's turn to do the live broadcast from the fan zone. And I'd done the lunchtime one. And in the lunchtime, we were on top of a bus, a sponsored bus. I think it might have been the Scottish Sun. I can't remember. We were on the top of this bus. And at one point, somebody came over to me and said, "There's a guy down there claims he knows you." And I said, "Thousands of them will know me. That's why they've come over." And I went over and looked over the edge of the bus, and it was Tommy Craig, the former Celtic assistant manager. And he had the Celtic top on, and he was waving up. And I said, "Hi, Tommy, I'll catch you later." And of course, I never did because there was thousands of people there. But later that night, John sort of took my position on top of the bus. Now, while I was on top of the bus, they were throwing beach balls and rubber balls and all sorts. So they were jokingly trying to hit us. Mm-hmm. But at one point, a camera came flying, a bit before you would throw your phone. And a camera came flying, and it just missed me. And it would have been very, very painful. But anyway, I avoided that. But later, when John was on top of the bus, a bottle came flying. I hate to tell you, but a bottle came flying and knocked him for 6. And at the end of the night, John was gaga. He was clearly concussed. So Raman Bardwaj and myself both managed to get John back to his hotel room. He didn't know us from, whoever, and he was absolutely gibbering. And we managed to get a doctor, despite none of us speaking the lingo. We managed to get a doctor out, and he was heavily concussed. And if we'd left him, I shudder to think what would have happened. But we managed to get him sorted out. And as I say, John tells that story in his book, so I don't think I've been speaking out of school.
No, not at all. I mean, that's ridiculous. There's always one idiot there, you know what I mean?
There's always one. There's always one.
Obviously, there was a certain amount of people there that time, obviously. So,
well, funnily enough, I was in Athens with Rangers, and I was touchline reporter that day, and I was stationed right in front of the Athens fans. It was AEK or Ike, as they call themselves, and they were caged in, but they were all sort of climbing up the fence and throwing stuff over the top. So, bizarrely, the stuff they were throwing was husks of sweet corn, which, as you can imagine, are pretty sore when they hit you. So that hit me a few times. And then the next thing, I was hit with a full bottle of water. Now, it was a plastic bottle, but it was full of water, and it just about knocked me for 6. And of course, this got reported in the paper the next day, and I was still in the plane coming home. And of course, my poor old mother, who's no longer with us, she saw this in the paper and was thinking that I was in some kind of bad way, but I'd actually just been kind of knocked for 6 and had recovered. But the papers picked it up and said that Jim Delahunt had been hit by a bottle of water. But anyway, I was fine. But I only told that story because these things happen when you're out in the open, and you just have to get on with it.
Absolutely. It's shocking though. It really you shouldn't need to go through that. But as you say, it's going to happen now and again. But see, going back to the horse racing and that,
Yeah.
obviously you've been to a lot of meetings and stuff. Is there any particular moment in horse racing that has stayed with you? A particular moment, a happening in history or whatever? Because obviously, I always remember like have you ever been to like Grand National and stuff like that? You go to all that?
Oh yeah, yeah. I've done Grand National. I've done a lot of Cheltenham festivals. I remember being down my very first Cheltenham. Now I think it would be 1983, and Michael Dickinson trained the first 5 home in the Gold Cup. So that was quite a baptism of fire to be at the Gold Cup for the very first time when Dickinson trained the first 5 home. I was also there when John Wilson sent out the winner of the Supreme Novices Hurdle with a horse called Harry Hastings. That was a great day. And then the following year, I was actually at Entry, and John had a horse called Young Driver, which was owned by a guy from Motherwell, I think. And Young Driver was 80 to 1, 100 to 1 for the Grand National. And I had actually backed a horse called West Tip, anti-post, and I stood to win in those days about 300 quid, which was very nice indeed. And when I got down to the track, I met John and I met the late David McHarg, who was with him. And they both said they backed Young Driver each way. And of course, I thought, well, I can't be with these two and not have backed this horse. So I went and managed to get each way 66 to 1 about Young Driver. And blow me, they didn't come over the last together, didn't they? So it was Young Driver and West Tip coming over the last in the 1986 Grand National. And I've got these two beside me going mad because they've backed Young Driver and John trains it. And I'm doing the arithmetic. How much do I win with West Tip and how much do I win with Young Driver? And it ended up, I was first and second and I won on both. So I was absolutely delighted with that. But
wow.
Yeah, those were great days. But I don't do the Grand National now because I feel it's a TV event. You don't really see much from the grandstands, to be perfectly honest. Once the horses go out into the country, you don't see very much at all. So I'll leave that to TV. But I still love going to Cheltenham, and I love going to. I haven't been to Royal Ascot for 4 years now, but I love going there. I don't dress up; I just go as a normal punter. I like York, and of course, I love Ayr. I've been going to Ayr since I was 15. So to have been at Ayr, the very first track I was ever taken to by my grandfather. To have been there and now be the race day presenter there is quite something. And also, I rode a couple of races at Ayr as well, which was quite a thrill for me, being a local boy.
I've actually been to the Scottish Grand National a couple of times. I'll tell you a wee story about it was, I can't remember what year it was, Jim, but you'll probably know, right? It was the year Run for Paddy won the Scottish Grand National.
Was it Run for Free?
No, Run for Paddy.
Run for Paddy. Oh no, I can't remember off the top of my head.
It's 2008 or something like that. Around about that kind of period. But we went with the work. We got a minibus all the way down there and stuff. As I was leaving the house, I'm a wee bit of a horse racing fan myself. As I was leaving the house, my mum shouted to me, "Put a tenner on Run for Paddy for me." Right, and I was like, right, okay, just whatever. Goes there. I didn't even look at the odds of it, lad, Jim. Just went there, said, right, okay, I'll put my bets on, put my mum's bet on. Tenner on Run for Paddy. They came in at 100 to 1.
My goodness. Well done.
So that was some day, man. Ended up all night that night. Obviously gave my mum more money in that, but I had a few winners myself that day. But
good for you.
I actually live in Hamilton. I'm actually in Hamilton right now, and Hamilton Racecourse is literally, if you walk out this door, it's literally 5 minutes down the road. And I've been here for over 10 years. I've never actually been, Jim. I've never went.
Really? Oh.
I've never. Sorry, I correct that. I was there for like a Christmas night out a few years ago, but I've never been for a race there yet.
Hamilton's a great track. Yeah, I did some presentation there as well before I moved to Ayr. It's a really good track. They have a big race which they ran a couple of weeks ago. Their biggest race of the year is the Lanark Silver Bell, which obviously used to be run at Lanark before that shut down in 1977. But Hamilton have revived it, and it's turned into a 100 grand race. And it was won the other day by Paddy the Squire, a horse trained by Ian Jardine.
Must be something with Paddy, eh?
Must be the Paddies. And Paddy the Squire, just so you know, because I'll be writing about this on Sunday, he goes for a race at Haydock next Saturday called the Old Borough Cup. And I think those of us who have followed Paddy the Squire's career all think that he might just win it. So I'll be writing more about that in my column on Sunday.
Right, well, that's been wrote down, mate. I'll be putting a wee score on that, I think. But so what was the next one? So what's coming up in the future then? For obviously we're going to get into like the modern day stuff like Celtic and Rangers and that. But
Yeah, sure.
what's coming up for you? In the horse racing side of things, football side of things, and everything else for you, Jim?
On the racing side of things, I'm about to get very, very busy because Ayr's about to stage the Ladbrokes Ayr Gold Cup Festival, which is a 3-day meeting next month. I was down there this week doing all the social media for it. I'll be down sort of a couple of days a week on the build-up as well, and then, of course, presenting the 3 days. We have our first meeting with ITV Racing, I think, next week, just to get things sorted out, because they come up and cover the big day as they do with the Coral Scottish Grand National as well. So I'm very much looking forward to that. Love the Ayr Gold Cup. Hasn't been won, would you believe, by a Scottish horse for 50 years. So Jim Goldie has a horse. He trains at Uplaw Moor, and he's got a horse called, I never get this right, Jordan Electrics, owned by Brian Jordan, who's got a big electrics company, would you believe? And they think that's got a bit of a chance, but it will go to Doncaster first. So it'll run at Doncaster the week before, might just win that. It's called the Portland Handicap. And then it'll go for the Ayr Gold Cup. And I think it finished 5th last year. And there was a horse called Guidor, which is actually a place in Ireland, which I've been. And it was trained by Katie Scott, still is. She's hoping that might sneak into the race, if not maybe the Silver Cup, which is also run on the Saturday. So those two Scottish trained horses look like being our best chance of ending that 50-year drought. The last horse to win it was a horse called Roman Warrior, which walked across the road from Cree Lodge, where I used to ride, and won it under Johnny Seagrave for a guy called Nigel Angus. Nigel's no longer with us. He was a lovely guy. He used to train at Cree Lodge. So 50 years have passed, and we still haven't had a Scottish trained winner. So I'll be hoping that something might happen on that front. But I'm very much looking forward to those 3 days next month.
All right, let's hope so, man. We need another Scottish winner there. So, Jim, it's been a very big week, mate, in Scottish football for all Scottish clubs. I done a podcast at the start of the week, and I said I don't see any of our teams getting through in their competitions, and it's been proved right, unfortunately. What do you think, mate, let's start with the Celtic game. What did you make of the performance over the 2 legs?
Well, let's go back to the first leg. I was really disappointed with Celtic's performance in that game. That was a game sitting there waiting to be won. Difficult to say that they didn't show enough energy, because I'm sure Brendan Rodgers would produce the figures to prove me wrong. So you have to put it down to the fact that they didn't play well enough. They certainly didn't play well enough. They really should have put that tie to bed in the first leg to take all the pressure off that second leg. They were very disappointed with that 0-0 draw, but I still thought they would go out to Kazakhstan and get some kind of result that would be beneficial. But I watched the game, and the longer the game went on, you just knew it was going to extra time, and the longer extra time went on, you knew it was going to go to penalties. So overall, performance-wise, 3 to 4 out of 10 over the 2 legs. Where do we stand in terms of the board not backing Brendan? Well, I don't know enough about the internal politics to have an informed opinion on that, but it looks to me, as an outsider looking in, that Celtic have just gambled on getting through this qualifier with the players that they already had. They're probably thinking, we gave him a £9 million striker last year. That's surely going to get us through. And it didn't. And it was just poor. It really was poor. And with hindsight, although, I mean, I'm saying with hindsight, I think we all knew beforehand that they really should have got players in and got them ready for this tie, because it was worth so much money. I mean, I know everybody shouts 40 million, but that's if you win a few games and earn a few points. But it's still worth an awful lot of money, and the Europa League will not be worth anything like it. I just saw the draw before I came on to chat to you. Of course, some people will say that Celtic and Rangers and maybe Aberdeen in the Conference League are now at their level, but I really think Celtic in particular should be in the Champions League, and I think they've blown it.
Totally agree. I mean, going back to what you first said about the energy thing, couldn't agree more. I mean, loads of people this week are saying, it doesn't look, they weren't interested, didn't try hard enough. I didn't see that personally, Jim. I did see effort, but I didn't see any quality. When the ball came on, I've been singling him out all week, but at the end of the day, he was playing out of position. But whenever Yang would get the ball, he would give it away, or his first touch was poor. Then you've got James Forrest on the other side, who just basically, I think, as all Celtic fans, we all love him. He's a Celtic legend, but he's not up to these games anymore. We all know that. Then we've got Adam Ida, guys like that. I mean, it just was a poor performance. But I agree, it was just a lack of quality when it comes to the board. I agree with you again, mate. But then, as you say, they're probably thinking, well, we'll give him a £9 million striker, £11 million midfielder.
Yeah.
But then we did sell Kuhn, so where's the replacement for him? Where's we had trouble all over the park. So the board have got a lot to answer for, definitely.
I would have thought so. And obviously the game coming up on Sundays at Ibrox, so not many Celtic fans there to cause a commotion. And I think the main commotion there is going to be the Rangers fans. They'll express their opinions before that game, I'm sure, with the various banners. And you'd have to say you can totally understand their frustrations, because Russell Martin's made an absolutely terrible start as manager at Ibrox. And I think it's certainly the Rangers fans that I speak to, and there are a lot I speak to, and they say they don't like his attitude. They don't like his laid-back attitude. They don't think he cares enough. So I think if he doesn't get a result against Celtic, and I'm not taking either side, although I have tipped Celtic in the paper. If he doesn't get a result against Celtic, I think he'll be gone. I don't think even this forward-thinking new board and new American money will wait, will hang around. I think they'll release him quietly out of his misery. But we'll see what happens on Sunday.
I'm surprised you say that, actually, because I'm the opposite. I think that no matter what happens on Sunday, unless it's an absolute, a real going over, I think they'll stick with him, mate, because obviously the performance the other night was really, really bad. But after the game, I don't know, did you see his post-match interview?
Yeah, saw it.
And he said, I was speaking to Kevin and, the people who are the hierarchy, basically. And they were basically saying, they back him and stuff. So I think that they gave him a 3-year contract, Jim. 49 or so. To me, that was that will give us 6 months regardless sort of thing, I don't know what you think. Obviously, you don't think that, but I just feel like that. I think they're in this for kind of long term.
Yeah, this is purely my opinion, but I think after that game the other night, they could not come out and say anything against them because of this Celtic game coming up. So I think that was de rigueur that he got backed after that shocking performance. I think it'll be totally different if they lose heavily to Celtic. Personally, I don't think there'll be much in it. I think Celtic might win by the odd goal. But if they lose heavily to Celtic, I think they may just call him in and say, look, let's do a mutual agreement here and you walk away.
Possibly. You might be right. But what did you make his... Now, I don't go down the road of he doesn't care and stuff because he's quite a calm guy and that. What I think is ridiculous, the stuff he's been coming out with to the press. The first one, obviously, against Motherwell, coming out and doing that. I mean, to throw your captain and your best player from last season, Raskin, for me, under the bus is a bit poor. Obviously, he dropped him for the league game, the Champions League game during the week after that. So we all know who he was talking about. So again, they're going to take that personally, in my opinion. He could have what I think he should have just done, Jim, was just say, that was a bad day at the office. We'll need to work on things. We need to get things better on that. But to do that straight away, first game poor, and then obviously the Iggerman's one at the weekend there. I know that people are saying, oh well, if Iggerman's refusing to come on, then he's got every right to say it. But what I feel is that shows other players that if something's going on in the background with players and Russell Martin or whatever, he's quite happy to tell the press and throw them under the bus. And I just feel that he's just too vocal. He needs to keep things indoors. I don't know what you think of that.
There is a story. He's had a standoff with I never get his pronunciation right. Tavernier, the right back, the captain, who I think is a decent player. He can't defend, but he's a decent player going forward.
Yep.
he seems to have had some kind of words with him. That player's seen off a lot of Rangers managers, by the way. He might see off another one yet.
Yeah.
So we'll see what happens over the next couple of weeks. But no, he's obviously got his own ideas about the game. He proved that at Southampton. And Rangers, when they hired him, knew exactly how he played at Southampton and how he never changed how he played at Southampton. He doesn't seem to want to change how he's playing at Rangers. Although I watched the whole St Mirren game last week, and once we were a goal down and that game was slipping away, he just basically chucked 10 forwards up the park. So it was just a case of bang, 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 and hopefully the ball will get in the net eventually. So he got that result, which I think was a face saver, but it didn't help him against Bruges. I mean, they had no chance of winning that tie. Absolutely no chance of winning that tie from 3-1 down, going away from home. But they should not have been getting hammered by 6 goals. They really shouldn't have.
No, definitely not. It's just, but time will tell, won't it? You know, as you say, Sunday's a big game and that. But what about the other Scottish clubs? Obviously, Aberdeen and Hibs last night. Aberdeen get battered. They're out there in the Conference League. Hibs actually showed a wee bit of fight in the second half, but it didn't quite work out.
No. Aberdeen, I think, despite winning the Scottish Cup, I think there's a lot of work to be done there. There are grumblings about Jimmy Thullin. We'll see how that pans out. Hibs, I think, are fantastic. They were superb second half of last season. They started this season the same way. When they were 3-1 up in Warsaw the other night, I thought, they're home and dry here. But sadly, I don't think they Hibsed it. I mean, everybody jokes, they Hibsed it, but they didn't Hibs it. The other team came back and got the victory eventually. I think going forward, Hibs will be a potent force. I think there'll be a big obstacle to Rangers, even though I think that game's at Ibrox, the League Cup tie. I think there'll be I think there'll still be a major obstacle to Rangers winning a trophy this season. I just think that game in Warsaw might take a bit out of them, but we'll see how they fare this weekend. And going forward, I think Hearts are a very good side in the making. I think Derek McInnes again has got work to do there. That was proved by going 3-0 down at home to Motherwell last week. Although by all accounts, and I've now watched the game, Motherwell were absolutely fantastic. They played Hearts off the park, fully deserved to be 3-0 up, and then Hearts came back and nearly won it 4-3. And something some people might not know is that I've actually, for the last, I'm trying to work out the years, last 12 years, I've had season tickets at St Mirren because I'd quite a young family. My kids are now 20 and 18. But when they were young, they wanted to go to football, and I thought, well, we don't live too far from St Mirren, so I've got family connections to that club going back a long time to my grandfather, and his wife, my late grandmother, was from Paisley, and part of the family have become St Mirren supporters over the years. And I thought, let's take the kids to St Mirren. So I think we've still got one seat, which my wife and my son alternate with. But we had 3 seats at one point, and I think they're a club which punches way above their weight. They really do. And I said this in the paper last week, and I got a bit of stick. But how that man is still there, I'll never know, because there are so many clubs down south who need a Stephen Robinson, and I don't know why they just don't come and get him. And the St Mirren fans will hate me for saying that, but he is a really top-class manager, and he should be in a bigger job. Be assured.
Oh, I agree. I totally agree. That gives me a wee chance to mention my wee pal, who's a St Mirren podcaster, Robbie Rants.
Right.
He's a big St Mirren fan, and we've been speaking about this, Stephen Robinson and that, and I actually did speak to him about, I said the exact same thing. I'm really, really surprised that clubs haven't come in and poached Stephen Robinson. I mean, his record, even when he was down at Morecambe, he done a really good job down there, and I feel that he will. Where do you think he could go though? Where's the next step for him?
I've got a feeling the way these things work, it would probably be top of League One in England, but I think he'd be fine in the Championship. I think he'd be fine in the Championship, and then who knows what happens after that, because it just depends how you fare. Once you get your opportunity, it's just how you fare after that. So, but I think I suspect it will happen this season at some point. I mean, come January, if somebody's really, really toiling, they'll look for a guy who's doing well, and Stephen Robinson ticks a lot of boxes. So again, with apologies to all the St Mirren fans, I don't think he'll last the season, to be honest.
And just talking about St Mirren again, just before we move on, it's like there's another podcaster I know actually. He does a podcast called Pitch and Patter.
Right.
It's Ryan, his name is, and he's literally just got a tattoo of Alex Gogic on his leg. a full tattoo of him, mate.
Oh, brilliant!
Right down the back of his leg. So he's been some player for St Mirren, hasn't he?
Fantastic player, Goga they all call him. He's an absolutely superb player. Would just run all day for you. And I think he's, maybe I'm a bit biased with the black and white specs on here, but I think he gets a rough deal from the referees sometimes. Maybe he gets booked for his first foul when they should maybe let him have a second one. But we'll see.
You're always definitely. One thing you'll always get out of him is his passion and his fight, because he was the exact same at Hamilton as well, wasn't he?
That's right. Yeah, that's right. No, he's a good player. I think he's a Cypriot international.
Yes, he is, mate.
Yeah, so he gets away on the international breaks as well.
And I think a lot of the time he plays in a position does he not play centre half quite a lot as well when he started out as a central midfielder?
Yeah, it's what I used to call it a sweeper. I don't think they would call that his position now, but when I'm watching the game, I'm thinking that's the old sweeper, which is one of the positions I played when I was a kid. So I do watch out for right backs and sweepers.
Is there any other players in the St Mirren team that you think could go into our next level?
I don't want to pick. I mean, I like Declan John. I think he's a good player. He's an ex Rangers youngster. I like the boy is it Killian Phillips?
Yes.
Really like him. I think he's a really good player. But no, they don't have any superstars, and they've got one or two lads who are just coming through who will be stars of the future. I'm pretty sure of that. But no, I think he basically has to rebuild every year, because there's always somebody who's going to get better wages than they're getting in Paisley. So he always loses a couple of key players, but he manages to bring them in, and I think that's one of the qualities that other people will pick up on.
Absolutely, the revolving door, he does seem to do that really well. But before I let you go, Jim, there's one other thing I want to talk to you about, and that's young Lennon Miller. Obviously, he's just moved to Italy there. How do you rate him, and how do you think he'll get on over there?
I think he'll go on brilliantly well. I saw him in the flesh twice last year. And obviously, I'm a fanatic watching highlights and live games and all the rest of it. So I rarely miss anything. And I actually watch far too much League One and League Two in England. I really must get off that. But it's the column I write on a Saturday tends to concentrate on these lower divisions quite a lot. So I do have to watch these highlights packages quite a lot. But no, I saw a lot of Lennon Miller. I don't know his dad, but I know of his dad, and I know his mum and dad, and his whole family have really looked after him at Motherwell, and Motherwell have really looked after him, and there were no obstacles put in his way once they knew he was going. Motherwell have got a fantastic amount of money for him, as rightly they should. That's how these things should work. So it's a fantastic deal for everybody. Great deal for Motherwell. Great deal for the player. He doesn't get sent to Rangers or Celtic, where he's suddenly got the spotlight on him every week and he's a couple of bad games and then he drops out the picture. He's going to a league where Scottish players are excelling at the moment, absolutely excelling. And I think it's a great opportunity for him. Absolutely fantastic. I look forward to catching a couple of his games, and I hope that somebody I spoke to said that he might not go into the team straight away, but might not be a regular straight away. But I don't think it'll take him long. And I think that's a great young talent going forward. And I think Stevie Clark should be very, very happy that he's going to get all this experience abroad, as opposed to just kicking a ball up and down in Lanarkshire.
Definitely. And I mean, I hope that does happen, where they kind of, integrate him into the squad and into the team and that, because you don't want to just shove him in straight away. It's a whole new culture, whole new level of, playing. Let's be honest, it's a big step up for the boy in that. So I really hope so. But Jim, before you go, just one last thing, mate. Is there anything you miss about your career in the past that you would like to go back into? Well, whether it be presenter, I'd like to see you back on the TV and football stuff like that, to be honest with you, mate.
Well, I always found and still find in this game that the phone has to ring. People look at people on TV and they wonder how they get the jobs. Well, you don't get them by applying for them. Somebody has to phone you and offer you the position, and that happened to me when I went to STV. It happened to me when I went to Setanta. happened to me when I went to Radio Clyde. It happened to me when I went to a race course. Somebody lifted the phone and said, "Do you fancy this job?" So somebody has to lift the phone and offer me something else. But at the moment, I'm absolutely flying down at a race course, loving it down there. I don't think I would ever go back into TV full time. I'm certainly not interested in all that day-to-day stuff again. Scott Sport doesn't exist anymore, so there's no opportunities there. I've pitched a couple of ideas to a couple of TV companies, but nothing's come of them so far. But in terms of the phone ringing, if it rang and it was interesting, I think I'd definitely give it one more crack.
Well, this is me urging everybody who get this shared to every TV producer and everything out there. Get Jim back in the game, man. Get him back on the TV because I miss him, and you know he's one of the top presenters that's ever been in Scotland, in my opinion. So, Jim, thank you very, very much for your time, mate. Honestly, it's been a total pleasure, a dream come true. Like I say, I've watched you since I was a kid and that, so this is very, very surreal to me. So I really, really appreciate it, Jim, and all the best for the future, mate. Hope you wishing nothing but success.
Well, Jamie, thank you very much for having me on, and I hope I didn't talk too much. I felt at times I was waffling away too much, but I hope everybody enjoys my blether, and lovely to see you, and all the best for the future.
Thank you very much, Jim, but never ever say that to any other podcaster because you're a legend, and I could have spoke to you for another 5 hours if I had to get away with it.
Thanks, Jamie.
Thanks, pal. See you later.
Cheers.